This is another Poets at War General Report. And here's your General, Joshua David Ling.
Good luck.
Yo, let's talk. It's been a minute since I've done an audio version of one of these, but I think it's going to start happening more. If I have something to show you, I will use video. But I am really diving back into my audio roots. Telling you guys, there's something magical about a soundscape where you have to imagine what you're seeing. And I think, in general, that's going to be a major thing going forward for Poets at War, for the General's Report. When this gets posted, it'll be long into it, Lord willing. Live audio. Poets at War is going to live audio. And yeah, I've made some cool stuff. And hopefully everything I'm saying is true and not something crazy. But I digress. Things have been good. Little crazy. Some crazy things that I can't talk about right now. But I'm getting back on track, and that's what's key. I'm focusing more upon the audio front of everything because I'm finding that's the thing that I do best. That's the thing my voice does best. I'm not the greatest thing to look at in the world. Not that I'm, whatever. My wife likes me. But my main focus is not in the visual aesthetic. It is in the audio aesthetic. And I'm kind of glad that I finally realized this because this is actually going to free me up to do a lot of cool stuff. Right now, I am sitting in my office, chilling out. It's a little bit messy. My wife is baking a cake for my daughter for her birthday, which is tomorrow. Hazel is going to be 6. So exciting. We're going to be doing some cool stuff. Maybe I can actually get audio of it and people won't care. That's the other thing. There's so many options with audio. The audio is just grand frontier to me. And I'm really looking forward to doing more with it. So right now, I am toward the end of my workday. I'm going to be getting back into some of my purple dragon stuff. That means my creative stuff that I can repeat over and over throughout the day. I've got all my main tasks done. I am getting things ready on OBS for, yes, I'm using OBS for my first run, live audio run for Poets at War on Tuesday evening. It's going to drop and it's going to be a surprise to everyone. Hopefully we'll get some people on and they'll want to talk in the chat and everything. We might even be able to add some people in through Discord. Right now, I am going to be working on, like I said, some of the creative stuff. Eventually I'll get back to OBS. And I need to set up Voice Meter. Kind of learning about how that works. Sort of a virtual audio mixer so that I can send audio through Discord from OBS. And hopefully set it up in Mix Minus or something like that to where people aren't hearing themselves echoing. That's my one concern. If I can get that taken care of, then everything else will be peachy. Yeah. OBS is really, really good for doing audio work. There's visualizers and all kinds of other things, and I'm going to be able to use my audio profile on OBS quite often to create some really cool, simple visualizers and things so that people can enjoy my work through things like TikTok and YouTube, etc. And yeah, I can focus on the vocal performance because that's what I do best. Any which way. That's enough of a ramble for now, I think. I just needed to make sure that I talked. That's the other thing. I think I'm going to be more willing to talk to you guys when I don't have to look great. Or have my surroundings look interesting or great. I have to set up a camera and do all that kind of stuff. I can just hold my phone and talk to you. In fact, I have a Bluetooth recorder on my phone to where I can just plug in my Bluetooth into my ear and walk around with you guys in my pocket and talk to you. I'm definitely going to be doing that at certain points. So thanks for now. Hopefully, this one's a lot longer than the previous bunch of generals reports, and we have some video, and it all goes well together. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, check 1, 2. I believe we are. Yep, says connected. So I'm just gonna go for it. Oh, hopefully this was what do you call it? Enhanced later on because Bluetooth audio does not sound super great. Thank God for, thank God, I'll say it again. Thank God for AI audio enhancement. It is extremely helpful and it does things that you literally cannot do with just normal audio tools because it reconstructs the audio. I'm at home walking through the house on my normal walk. I'm up to 93 minutes and I cannot wait for the weather to get better so I can actually walk outside. That's going to be a lot nicer than walking in our little tiny home. It's not a tiny home, but you know what I'm saying. Um, so basically, I woke up at 5 this morning. I am walking along, doing my thing. I have, let's see, what do I have left? I just walked past my screen here, recording General's report, which I'm doing now. Working on the Poets at War audio live stream prep. We're starting tomorrow. Woohoo! Yes, I'm excited about that. And I've got it just about set. It's really, really cool. Let me take a drink real quick. Okay, yep, there we go. And then I have some book reading to do. I have other things, but they are scheduled for the rest of the day. A lot of church stuff. My endless battle with our church's sign. We bought a sign a while ago, and it still isn't working properly. Like a big, you know, RGB type sign. And so we're gonna mess with that, see how it goes, deal with tech support, all the other stuff. We've dealt with this for a long time, and it's been incredibly frustrating. But I got up at 5 because I have church meetings also and other sorts of things at the church. Just a lot of stuff kind of piled on today. And so I got up at 5 and I'm already almost done with a lot of stuff and it's 9:17. I need to leave the house at about 12:30, 12:45. So not bad at all. I'm gonna have some time to work on the one thing that's kind of going to take a little while is the working on the Poets at War live stream. I have to get a few more things done for us to be 100% ready. Um, However, it's going to be a first run, trial run, and we'll see how things go. We may change things up, change how things work in the future. Generally speaking, I'm super thrilled with how OBS is working as an audio situation. I got, it was a little inside baseball. I got voice meter and set up the extra voice meter cable. I'm not using voice meter itself so much because there's a plugin called Audio Monitor for OBS, and it literally lets you use a filter on the audio to send it to a specific output and you can independently control the volume of those outputs um, from the stream itself. So basically, this is a really cool audio engineering thing that I created. When we go to a pre-recorded scene, such as the intro or a commercial break or the outro or whatever, we, me, Brendan, and Alex, who are talking through Discord, will be able to hear each other still but not have our voices go out to the stream. And when our voices go out to the stream, or excuse me, when our voices don't go out to the stream, we'll hear each other and we'll hear a quieted version of the ad, even though it will be full volume for everybody on the stream. So I literally have to do nothing but choose select that scene in OBS where the pre-recorded content is. And so I'm still working out all the specifics, but the fact that I can do that and not have to like play with any faders or levels or anything is just really cool. And I've not been able to do this kind of radio sort of thing in quite a while. I really love radio. I always have. I think it's an incredible medium, and I know it's not called radio anymore because radio frequencies, whatever, digital radio, whatever you want to call it. But I love the concept of doing far more in audio formats because I realized that my voice is a very, very, very important aspect of who I am and what I do. It's also one of the most marketable when it comes to getting work, audiobooks and the like. People generally find that my storytelling is most capturing through my voice and through my acting. And even when I do AI voice changer stuff in some of my stories and things, one of the things that's particularly nice and interesting about that is my acting comes through. It's not just text to speech, right? I'm actually like acting and then it's shifting my voice and reconstructing it as another thing, as another character. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to try and get other voice actors on the regular. I think Sarah Levesque has been talking about being Pandora for a while now, and I'm really hoping that she can still do that. Um, Ian Wilson might be able to be Dex Kramer. We shall see. We shall see. We had talked about that a while ago, and I just haven't been able to get around to it because we were looking at it for a pilot for something. But I really like my decision to kind of go full hog or whole hog on the audio because no one's really doing it. And there's a lot of cool tools that you can use like OBS and you can create a whole other kind of world. And even though the quality on Discord is not great, audio wise, I can kind of enhance it some, and maybe we can get to the day where we can have actual live radio drama again. That excites me. The idea of having other people's voices and a computer that's good enough to do voice changing when need be, um, and all the other kind of things to have live radio drama performances of various, stories, especially mine, but other people's too, right? Like, I really would love to make that a major part of Poets at War and to maybe even live stream some old books, you know. Poets at War is not going away. Poets at War needs to be there because that's the nonfiction branch of what I do. And I love talking like this with you all and talking about what it means to be a bard, be your family's bard. And I want to do that more and even have some deep dive topics and whatever else. I still have yet to do a rainbow show, but I really want to do a show on the rainbow and what it really means scripturally, and why I think we should be taking it back from the LGBTQ mafia. Um, so, yeah, this has been nice. I like walking with my earbud in, and hopefully the audio is good enough with the AI enhancement. I'm sure it will be, that you will be able to appreciate it and enjoy it. Uh, this coming beginning of March when I post this February blog, whatever you want to call it, because it's going to have some audio, some video probably, and we'll go from there. That's the thing. Video can be optional. Taking a peek into our world actually makes it more special instead of just sitting a camera in front of someone for all that time, right? So, any which way, appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time. Also, be in prayer for me. I have I don't usually do this. I think it's kind of silly, but I have a um, unspoken prayer request that I really cannot talk about right now, but I really would pray that, or ask that you would pray for me and my family and my extended family. And yeah, that's it. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.
Hello, friends. I keep rolling a 1, which means that I need to do a General's Report recording. I keep thinking, no, I'll keep putting it off. But no, I just keep rolling 1s. So, we're going to do it. And no, rolling a 1 is not the same as in D&D, like it's a low score or anything. That's actually for Orange Dragon stuff, which basically means Orange Dragon stuff is things that are quick and easy to do, but actually have a big impact. General's Report does do that, because I feel a lot better when I give you a General's Report at the beginning of the month that is actually entertaining and interesting. That being said, I don't have a whole lot to say at the moment other than Poets Award Live was really fun. We just did that last night, and I am loving it. I need to get a hold of my controls and stuff, and I think a Steam Deck would really help, or potentially going back to Touch Portal. Touch Portal is cool, don't get me wrong, but it is finicky on connection, and I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me. For those who don't know, Touch Portal is a thing that lets you control and create macros for OBS using your iPad as a touchscreen. Someone's calling me, but I don't know them. And a Stream Deck, not a Steam Deck, a Stream Deck is actually the same thing, but with hardware buttons and little tiny screens that light up behind those buttons, those clear buttons, and you can press them and they do macro things. And it's a lot nicer because it's plugged directly into the computer, as opposed to doing a wireless connection with Touch Portal. I think Touch Portal can do technically a wired connection, but I've never had success with that. So, yeah, that will be really helpful instead of trying to remember keyboard shortcuts on the fly, which was a little finicky the other night, but it led to some comedy, so I'm okay with that. Got some other cool ideas in that regard for some sound bites and things we can add in. Could be real fun. Today I am going to do battle with the church sign. We didn't do battle with the church sign this last time that I mentioned it because of weather. But today is looking good, and we'll see what we can do. I have no clue if this thing's ever going to be proper, but we shall see. Yeah. So, I have been working hard, waiting on potentially another audiobook. If y'all want to hire me for an audiobook at any point, let me know, and I will gladly negotiate with you on that. I'm thoroughly reasonable as far as that goes, and I really want to get my work out there, so just let me know. Let me know! I know a lot of people in the Brood have books that need audiobooks, so you guys just hit me up. I will barter, I will, do what I need to do, so I appreciate you all listening. I don't have, like I said, a lot to go on right now other than I need to keep working, I need to keep moving forward. God's been very, very good. And yeah, today I slept in for the first time in a while, and I'm glad I did. I generally feel a lot better. Genuinely and generally. Because I'm the general. What? Anyway. English is weird, you guys. It has so many synonyms and repeated syllables and things. It's so strange. But with all those things being said, I appreciate your prayers. Still all kinds of stuff going on. And we'll talk soon.
Hey there, everybody. It's your general speaking. It's the middle of the afternoon. I'm fairly tired. And, I remembered something the other day. Something from my childhood. Something from my father that I thought you would find pretty interesting. One of the things about my dad was even though I emphasize his interest in fantasy literature, which was not as strong as mine, but still fairly strong, and just generally cool things in that realm, he was also a fan of progressive rock music, as many people were in the 1960s and 70s and even into the 80s. There was an album of his that he really, well, I'll say the whole band, because he really liked the album Dark Side of the Moon a lot more than any of the other albums of the band Pink Floyd. But he also appreciated their other music too. And one day, he read me a story from a book called Wise Words by Peter Lightheart. Peter Lightheart is a Presbyterian pastor, teacher type guy. Some people like him, some people don't. He's a little bit polarizing. I'm not going to go into anything regarding him, but the book is sort of like a shorter, pithier version of the Book of Virtues, but it's based around Proverbs, the Book of Proverbs in the Bible. I do recommend it to anyone who enjoys fairy tales. They're very good. Each fairy tale sort of is based around a proverb from the Bible, and it has a moral at the end. You know, the moral of the story is, and it reads the Bible verse. Still, really well done fairy tales, regardless of that. One of those fairy tales was something called The Tree That Bled. Now, I'm going to describe the story to you, but it's a very, very good language, and you should go look for it yourself. I'm not going to, well, I am going to spoil it, but it's not going to be something that's going to spoil the book, because like I said, it's a collection of fairy tales. In this story, we have a tree, and the tree knows of a temple nearby. The tree can see, the tree can talk, it's a whole thing. And so there's a temple nearby, and one night there's a storm and it destroys the temple, and they cut him down and use him and other trees to rebuild the temple. The tree has always wanted to be a part of the worship that he hears going on in this temple, but he was never able to because he's a tree and he is rooted to the ground. When he gets cut down, it's actually very gruesome, and the people don't speak the same language, so they don't hear him, but they do see that he is bleeding. He has red sap. It's actually a very gruesome situation, and the tree essentially dies. It's actually a very scary kind of situation as he slowly is cut up and dies. And as all this happens, he eventually wakes back up and realizes he is now part of not only the temple, but the musical instruments. He's a part of the music. He's a part of the whole of the worship of God. When I was little, my dad read this to me, and I recently remembered him reading it to me. I pulled out my copy of Wise Words. I reread it. I read some other stories that he mentioned. But going back to Pink Floyd, I specifically remember him telling me how the world views being a part of a larger whole, right? And getting lost in the shuffle in such a weird, crazy way. We don't need no education. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. And yet, the tree can be another plank, brick, whatever, in the wall and be part of the most important worship ever. He's actually taken and broken down and rebuilt as what he was supposed to be from the beginning. He has fulfilled his purpose that is not fulfilled in just being a tree. So, self-application and application for yourselves. We're all being, lambs to the slaughter, as the Bible says. We're all accounted as lambs to the slaughter. We're all being chopped up. We're all being distributed and scattered and all the other sorts of things, because that's what Christians do. That's what Jesus did himself. And guess what? All those pieces are going exactly where they need to go because God is in control. And all in all, even if you feel like it, you're not just another brick in the wall. Sorry, Pink Floyd. Anyway, that was just a little memory from my dad that I wanted to share. Now I gotta get back to work. Appreciate y'all. Like heart that longs for flowing streams, so longs my soul, O God, for you. I thirst for God, the living God. When can I see the face of God? My tears are food both day and night. Men say to me, where is your God? My soul poured out, I see again the throng I led to reach God's house. The shouts, the songs, the crowds, the feast. My soul, why so bowed down, disturbed? Hope now in God, I'll praise him still. He is my help, he is my God. With soul downcast, I you recall this lovely land where Jordan flows. Mount Hermon towers, Mount Mizar stands. Then wave calls wave, then thunder roars. Like water spouts, your breaking waves, your billows all roll over me. The Lord commands by day his love, by night his song to be with me. A prayer to God, God of my life. I pleading say to God my rock, why me forget, why let me mourn, because my foe oppresses me. As if to shatter all my bones, my adversaries taunt again. All day they scoff, where is your God? My soul, why so bowed down disturbed? Hope now in God, I'll praise him still. He is my help, he is my God. Psalm 42.
Interesting.
And we're recording.
That's a weird...
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a weird dichotomy that I would not have put on myself, that I'm the one who makes sense more.
More than me, yeah. I'm... Have you seen me? Everyone's...
Yeah, I have. You make perfect sense.
Everyone still... That's the thing. I make perfect sense to you. And a handful of other weirdos.
Well, I'm glad to be counted among the weirdos.
Yes. So...
It feels like home to me.
Yes, exactly. Good gracious, that just hit a song note. Why don't you... This is more a conversation between you and me than actual like podcasting. So don't like even like we're talking about stuff. This is General's report. This is a conversation that you and I had during that time. So fill the people in just as a immediate to what we had been talking about before I hit record. Earlier today. But yeah, and then we'll get to what we're talking about and ignore the people after that.
Correct me where I missed stuff, but effectively we were talking about the so Tolkien and Lewis was, as it always is in our conversation, kind of the entry point here,
right?
But specifically, I asked the question: how do we live? How do we live in light of the wonderful inheritance that we have been given by God through Tolkien and Lewis and Rich Mullins? Those were the three names that we specifically brought up.
Particularly Lewis and Mullins, because we were comparing and contrasting the two, given that they were looked at by their peers as particularly odd. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So how do we take this inheritance that we've been given by them, and not squander it? Is kind of the question that I was asking, because it seems like we kind of have, because Lewis was in academia-ish. To my knowledge, he was never super well respected in academic circles, but he was in academia, and he was also in literature. He was respected in the field for a long time.
Right. He was respected in the field of history, particularly in regard to medieval studies. Everyone knew that he knew his stuff. That's where he was. But the thing was, his field itself was not very highly respected during that time in academia. So as a result, most people but besides him being a Christian, also had issue with him being a medievalist and whatever else. So he was just a guy, a weird guy who liked weird things to most of the academics, but to the world, he was a person who had great insight about faith and where we stand in modern day because he had an idea of where we came from.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, continue with what you were saying.
But so academia died a long time ago. Like outside of both of our lifetimes, academia was effectively dead. Literature will never really die, but it's kind of on life support right now because there's just not that much good stuff being put out. Like really deeply good stuff.
There is, but it's not being put out to the level that it was previously due to a combination of saturation of the market and that's not all of it, but that's part of it.
Incompetency of readership as well.
And that's the other thing, the incompetency of readership, but also the push amongst, now that there are self-published platforms, the established traditional platforms are trying to make the safest bets possible instead of taking risks.
Yes, exactly.
So as a result, the most influential things tend to be self-published, but there aren't as many.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway,
especially inside of like the fantasy genre seems to be where most of this stuff is hanging out right now.
Right now, I'm just filling in gaps while you're getting to the point. But go ahead.
Yeah. And then as far as so academia and literature are not doing as well as they have been. And music, which is where Mullins was primarily focused on, you know, his impact. CCM's been dead like since he was, effectively, with a couple of outliers. There are still good songs being put out there, but the industry itself, the stuff that you hear on K-Love, Air One, House FM, is just Christian garbage.
Right.
And that's a bad thing, in case we haven't convinced who's listening of this.
Right. Yeah. As far as that goes, there's one outlier in my opinion, and that is Grandpappy Chapman.
Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Yeah, Grandpappy Chapman. That's the way the industry looks at him too. Oh, this guy is the bastion of what was 90s Christian music, and we saw that in its full extent when that movie on Netflix, I can't even remember the name of it, came out, and Dive was like a major song, and everyone was like, oh, I remember that song. It was just kind of it was kind of hilarious how that was part of the marketing push to make this movie nostalgic that had nothing to do with nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
but
very weird.
So the inside of this framework, CCM's dead. The music industry as a whole is corrupt as sin. Literature and academia are both not doing well. Academia is dead. So how do we live in such a way as Christians? How do we use our lives to cease the squandering of this inheritance that we've been left, and push forward to live out the vision that these great men of God had in the world? And as a more like to bring it less esoteric and more practical, like how do we raise kids to be Rich Mullins and C.S. Lewis and Tolkien?
Right. And what was my answer for the people?
Your answer was they all had broken homes.
They all being Mullins, Tolkien, Lewis.
Yeah, Mullins, Tolkien, and Lewis all came from broken homes, and they were looking for something, and they found it.
And let me grant, Rich Mullins' home was still mostly intact. He just had cracks in areas that gave him a heartache. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, of course.
Yes, but go ahead.
But they were looking for something. They found the thing, and they were going to tell everybody about it.
Right. And then what did I say?
And you stole that from Darren Doan.
Right, yes. And then what did I say about the millennial generation?
That the millennial generation is a Bardic generation? and that they are looking for that same thing. That, like, we have an entire generation of Lewis and Mullins and Tolkien right now,
Right.
who are just not finding this thing that they are looking for.
And the thing we have the most of is Lewis out of the three, because he was an atheist. He had completely given up on finding the thing.
And part of the reason that Lewis was an atheist is part of the same reason. This is the thing that blew my mind earlier. The reason that Lewis was an atheist was primarily, he lost his faith before this, but his experience in World War I solidified that.
Right.
And the experience of the world wars from that generation is what pushed them into either aberrant forms of Christianity or absolute unbelief.
Right.
And the same thing in microcosm happened with the millennial generation with 9/11.
Right.
It was, okay, this terrible thing happened, and that pushed a lot of millennials. I'm not sure if it's a majority, but it is at least a significant plurality. That's not technically how that word is used, but there's a large amount of millennials into atheism, agnosticism.
Right.
Which is what blew my mind.
Right.
Okay, that same thing that happened in World War I, World War II era happened with the millennials.
Right.
So the other thing that you said along with that is that they're looking for this, and the church has failed.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form. To extent can be debated, but
and different individual, different congregations fail differently too. So yeah.
In that they are not providing a analog to the Inklings effectively. Or
the church
Society,
didn't. Well,
what you said?
The Square Peg Alliance was a Andrew Peterson thing, but the point that was precursor to Rabbit Room. But the point that I'm trying to make overall with that is not so much that the church has failed in giving us an Inkling group, because the church didn't give us an Inkling group. The Inklings gave us an Inkling group.
Yes.
What they're doing is they're belittling Inkling groups.
Yes,
which is so much worse than not just giving us one.
Yeah, exactly. The broad evangelical cultural understanding of artists is these are the weird guys who are going to push us liberal, so we have to stop that. Oh, hi, Mark Dever.
Right. So,
and I don't hate Mark Dever. Mark Dever's fine, but he's TGC.
Right.
Oh, hi, TGC. That would be better to say.
So here's the deal. We can go into that direction in a minute, but I really want to get back specifically, and keep in mind, this is just you and me talking. Yeah. We did kind of an intro, but we're just talking.
After that, this is just our conversation now.
Yes. So I kind of want to look at something besides the church, because everyone points to the church. The artists in particular, even the liberal ones, want to push against the church. All the deconstructionists want to push against the church. Let's look in the other direction.
Yeah.
Particularly at the... Here's the thing. You know, and I know that there is replacement. There is a replacement. We have to replace what we took away from our hearts. So whether or not someone was a Christian is a whole other thing. We believe once saved, always saved, like you and I both do. Like we get all that. Okay. As far as
perseverance of the saints.
Right.
Yeah.
Perseverance of the saints. So basically, here's the deal. C.S. Lewis never lost his faith. I know you use that phrasing, but I know what you mean. Let's focus on that. Okay.
Yeah.
We have all these millennials who have quote unquote lost their faith. Not using that exactly right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So in that regard, what are they replacing it with? There are very few answers.
Yeah. I mean, you say that there are very few answers.
There are very few answers.
I mean, sex, drugs, those are the two things that immediately come to mind.
Everyone goes to those first. But what changed in the popular culture before we got all of the crazy rampant sexuality. Think post 9/11. What changed before that?
The internet?
That's a big one. But what did the internet give us a gateway into besides porn?
Social media.
Social media. What else? What's one of the number one things that you use besides Google when you're trying to find something?
YouTube?
Right, that's that's Google, but I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
What I'm driving at is Wikipedia.
Are you looking for Wikipedia?
I am looking for Wikipedia.
Okay, now, run this connection for me because I'm not seeing it.
I understand. All these kids who grew up in a world where they had TV shows and experiences that would come and go, and then almost all of their childhood experiences were gone after 9/11. Okay? The children's entertainment industry took an absolute nosedive around 9/11. And you can look at this.
Same thing that happened after World War I, right? The film industry.
Yes. And so, what's the difference between that period of children, when World War II and all that other stuff, and the 90s kids? They had the internet. They could look up Rugrats, for example, just a random show. I didn't watch it growing up, but I know a lot of people who are nostalgic for the TV show Rugrats. Okay. They could actually find later on full episodes in the early days of YouTube of Rugrats that people had uploaded for them when the show was no longer on TV. They could relive the highs that they had in their childhood and pad their worried souls with coddling comforts from their childhood. They were no longer absent. They were no longer gone. Okay? You following me?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And so, when God, supposedly, wasn't there for them, supposedly, right? That's the accusation that they levy.
Yeah.
What was? Rugrats.
Yeah. The entirety of the internet.
The entirety of the internet, all of the old shows they watch, Mario and Luigi, Star Wars, pop culture, 90s nostalgia exploded. And it became an industry with people like the Nostalgia Critic.
Yeah.
Right? And the angry video game nerd and people who talked about these things, because when we were kids, the only people we could talk about them with, because it's pre-internet or during the very beginnings of the internet and we didn't have access yet, were the kids in our neighborhood or at school. And as soon as it was not cool to talk about it anymore, we didn't. Okay? So we lived in a world that was immediately glorified, and then everything broke, and we can blame everything on that scapegoat and live in a Gnostic reality of nostalgic 90s. That is the God of the Millennials.
Alliteration, 4 points.
Thank you. Thank you. But
Gnostic nostalgia of the 90s.
Yes. Yeah. The 80s, 90s. The people do this with this even back to the 70s. Some people do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so basically everything is rose-colored glasses with this. Okay. And now what does that actually produce? Well, if the 90s is here for me and God is not, then I can do whatever I want. And the first thing, and then the first thing comes, well, as long as I don't hurt people. That's usually where people immediately go to, right? And a lot of people haven't gone over
Insert presuppositional argument here.
Right.
Move on.
Right. And a lot of people don't go over to the Jeffrey Dahmer side because of the values that were instilled in the Gnostic 90s nostalgic programming.
Yeah.
Because when you actually go back and look at 80s and 90s cartoons in particular, you can still see a ton of Christian influence in the industry.
They're very moralistic.
They're very moralistic, and that had not all been pushed out yet. This is why we have millennials that are both tree huggers and leave the gays alone and this, that, and the other. They are actually parroting what they learned as a child, and it wasn't Sunday school, and it wasn't public school. It was
Saturday morning cartoons.
Television. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is why everyone says we don't understand millennials, but you do. There's another.
Yeah, you totally do.
There's another tangent I'll go on here. This is a brief one, but marketers have been complaining for years that they cannot market to millennials.
Nah, this is the easiest thing in the world.
Well, right, but this is a major issue. There are many marketers who say that we cannot market to millennials because they don't see people actually like buying their product, right, in the millennial categories. And yes, if you wanted to go the nostalgic route, that's what some people have figured out, and you can do that. But some can see that you're trying to make there was a culture of understanding what's selling out and what is real in the 90s that still is very much pervasive. And here's the thing. What were the very first marketing things that a child saw in the 90s? They were not what they saw in the 80s. They were not directly marketed to like the kids in the 80s, where they were given, here's Transformers, just like your TV show, right? Because that was taken away due to FCC and all the other kind of stuff. But the 90s kids saw a whole bunch of stupid, useless adult crap that they purposefully had to not whine about because that would get them in trouble. And they just had to patiently wait for their show to come back. So they inadvertently created the most inoculated generation to marketing materials that we've ever seen. And they're only ever going to buy what they want to buy.
Yeah. And that I say problem, it's the problem for the marketers. Blessing, honestly, has only become compounded with Gen Z, where I can pick up what a clickbait ad is from 2 miles away on audio.
Exactly, and that all started.
I can hear the first line of the ad and tell you that's clickbait. Stop watching it.
And see, they actually took that to heart from their parents too, because parents were. This was the big arguments that started in the 80s. You're taking advantage of these kids by marketing the toys on the show.
Yeah.
Right? You're exploiting these kids and exploiting their poor hardworking parents, blah, blah, blah. And the kids picked up on this. And they said, yeah, we're with mom and dad. They're just trying to get money from us, and we need that for important things like food and clothes, further solidifying the Gnostic part of the nostalgic Gnostic 90s. Right? Okay.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
Yeah. With this.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
No, you go ahead. I was figuring out where I was going. You're fine.
Okay. So are we seeing, is that being fixed at all with the, as far as I can tell, because it's like 3 or 4 people in my friend group, which is not that big.
Right.
Are we seeing a reversal of this or a pushing back of this with the emphasis that a lot of people in Gen Z have on live music?
I think
I have at least 2 people in my friend group who have gone to like 5 concerts in the last
what? You cut out.
Year.
In the last year. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
So is that a reversal of that Gnostification?
no, I don't think it is. I think it's a further. So here's the thing. Millennials liked live music too. That was very much a thing, especially back in the 90s and the 2000s, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is a separate section of the music industry, in which there is more of an emphasis in that degree because you're paying the artist, and thus we're being more moral about the whole experience.
Okay.
Because the only way to really get music at this point is by streaming, which is glorified piracy as far as most people are concerned. Right. You can buy CDs, you can buy digital or buy those sorts of things. But when this is the conflict, right? We've got collectors on one end of the Gnostic nostalgic 90s that are less Gnostic. They're actually wanting the physical thing, and they create shrines to their god, right? And they believe in, because they still believe in shrines. Then we have our Marie Callender, that's delicious. Marie Kondo people who are coming in with the minimalism and the tiny house and all this other kind of stuff, and this idyllic this idyllic thing that really comes in, and I know that's what you're saying, your friend group and things, but that can be traced to the 90s fascination with older media, because there were conservative circles who didn't want their children not watching Nickelodeon. They had them watch Little House on the Prairie, and thus the nostalgia is just pushed further back. Now, I think there are people who legitimately want these things, and if they got them, they would be happy because their hope is ultimately in Christ. But I could say the exact same thing for the radical extreme skateboarder kids who really enjoyed the 90s.
Yeah.
Right? If they got their, penthouse suite with their family, and Christ was their king, and they could build an amazing, Space Jam accurate movie basketball court somewhere, that they would be happy, right? Like, there are people like that. One example I can think of immediately is a guy, he's like non-denom, I believe, but he goes by Retro Rick on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him before.
Not familiar with him.
He runs a video game store in Arkansas, around
I think you've told
the
me
Little
about
Rock area,
him.
if I remember correctly. Yeah, he's really cool, and he has a legitimate love for all things nostalgic 90s. He hasn't fully he plays music at his church, and that's the one thing that's kept him from going any harder at what he's doing. But he's an amazing salesperson, does vlogs about like the big trades that come into his store. Actually, will talk to people in store, ask if he can film them, whatever, and like go through their trade and talk about it, like basically it's like Pawn Stars meets 90s nostalgia meets a vlog, right? And it's thoroughly entertaining. Love this guy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I have no reason to doubt that he's a Christian. He's got children. He's got a wife. He's doing the whole thing, living the American dream. And this game store thing fell into his lap. An old couple that owned this particular game store that he was going to for years just decided that they were going to sell. And they just had a conversation with him and said, that's the guy. And he agreed to it, and it was a good price, and he's basically turned it into a destination location with all of the 90s nostalgia that he has there. A little bit part museum, part game store, all really, really cool, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an example of somebody who can be in this other category that's not the Little House on the Prairie idyllic situation, and appreciate the nostalgia without worshiping it, right? But there are people, admittedly, in the Little House on the Prairie Muffin camp, I'll call it that, right? The Prairie Muffin camp, to borrow from Doug Wilson.
These are the X Vision form people,
right? Exactly. These are the people who actually worship the lifestyle of the people on Little House on the Prairie, not even the people that the Little House on the Prairie is actually about, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. If we can just get back to what's important and not think about all the other things, if we can just shut out the world and create our own little microcosm, everything will be fine. It's Amish light, right?
And the only thing that gives me more hope for those people is that they're going back to real. Like if you actually follow that through, you're going back to the ground. Like, you can't get more real than that. You're actually making your own food, and I would hope that by the grace of God, they would figure out, oh, there's like they would learn the truths of that, and then reintegrate with greater understanding of the real world after that, after they went through this like vaguely Gnostic phase.
Okay, so
yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I believe that that's going to be more the case in general, but let me push back just a little bit. So what is real? So you think of let me give a more concrete example. What's a 90s movie that you can think of that has good morals in it?
I did not grow up watching 90s movies unless you're talking about like Disney.
That's fine if you want to go Disney.
Mulan's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Mulan was what, mid 90s?
Okay.
Go with Mulan.
Yeah, okay. So we'll go with Mulan. Let's say someone's really, really nostalgic for Mulan. That's their jam. That's their thing. You know, that's the movie that they collect for. That's their chosen thing that they do. Okay. So let's say we have a person who does that, and Mulan changed their life, and they have a deep-seated personal connection for whatever reason. Okay. Now you say you follow it back to the ground in your case. Follow Mulan back. What do we get to?
Well, you get to a specific. I would say you get to feminism, but I'm not sure that that's right, because I'm not sure that Mulan is actually as feminist as people make it say.
Right, it's not. It's what Mulan is saying that you have to do what's right when it's time to do what's right, no matter who you are.
Yeah. Also, the importance of family.
Also, the importance of family. So there's real, actual values behind that are hidden by other sorts of things. Okay, so
yes,
what's to stop either of these people? Okay, you got the people, like you said, in the Prairie Muffin side, who go back to the ground and they are trusting in God to, you know, like a farmer should, to raise the wheat from the ground. Okay. Then you've got, I'm going to give you 4 examples so you care. Okay. Then you've got the person in the category of Mulan who worships Mulan, who actually goes it full in, and this is the embodiment of everything good, and thus it creates a Gnostic thing that we can never attain to because it's an animated movie, because it's blah blah blah, and all the worst things you can possibly think of. Then go back to the Prairie Muffin side. We also have the people who go back to the ground and become pagans and worship the ground.
Yeah.
On the worst level. And then on the other side, we've got the people who the reason they keep coming back to Mulan is because it keeps bringing them back to the scriptures.
There's something true there. There's something true there.
Yes. And pointing them to Christ and telling them how they are to act on the ground in their everyday life.
Message of Mulan is baptize your babies.
There you go. Of course it is, right? I don't know what. Well, there's no male or female in Christ. Baptize those babies, right? No more circumcision. There you go. Boom. All tied together.
Exactly. Yeah.
It all works.
Yes, exactly. That's an interesting read on that verse that I haven't heard.
What male or female in Christ? Well, yeah, that's the thing. They weren't circumcised. They weren't part of the covenant in that direct kind of way, but they are now. That's one of the ways it's better. You know, we have a better covenant in Hebrews. Yeah.
Oh, that's magnificent.
And the reason that is the case is because the promise to Eve was fulfilled and she was redeemed.
Oh, dear Lord, you're right. That's what Paul's talking about in Timothy. She will be saved in childbearing.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was completely tangential, but
of course that's right. That's a biblical proof for it that I hadn't heard before.
Yep.
That's excellent.
Yep. So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on topic.
The only thing that I would say is different between the Mulan and the people who go full prairie muffin, to use that term, is that if you go full prairie muffin and don't trust in God, you'll die.
Yeah. Well, you'll die the other way too.
Mulan and don't trust in God, you can just miss it.
I don't know about that. Because Mulan,
there are Tolkien scholars who miss the fact that that Lord of the Rings is so deeply Christian.
Sure. But what I'm saying is, if you go full Mulan, you're really going to end up Don Quixote-ing.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Tilting at windmills?
Not just tilting at windmills, but literally tilting at windmills and killing yourself.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
You're going to go out and fight the Huns because you're delusional.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
So, whatever thing is holding you back in life is the Huns, and you need to go kill it with a knife because that's how Mulan did it.
Fair enough.
We're kind of recording, but you can say hi, whatever. Like, this is going to be edited later. It's not live. Don't worry about it. You want to say hi? No?
Drop the unedited version later.
Yeah. We'll it's all going on General's report. It's fine. No big deal. But yeah, so in this regard, going back to what we were talking about with the Bardic generation, right? Going back to how this is ripe for revival.
Yeah.
We talked a good bit about Young, Restless, and Reformed. We talked about this was before that we got on here, whatever. We talked about all these sorts of things. And I think the fact that we are interested in the nostalgia to begin with and trying to figure out why we felt safe then and why we don't feel safe now, those are the right questions to ask to stumble upon Christ. Right? Even if we were inoculated to him in 90s evangelicalism. Right?
Yeah.
This will actually has the chance and has, for many people, taken us deeper. I say us because I was definitely one of them. Right?
Yeah.
This is the thing that I knew growing up, watching movies, is that there was something true of Christ in it. But all of these things were never sacred secular divide because of my dad. Right?
Yeah.
All of this was under the rule of God. All goodness belongs to him. All authority belongs to him. All truth belongs to him. So if it is true, if it is good, if it is beautiful, then it's actually of him in some way, shape, or form. Now, you might have to do some sifting to not, be eating sawdust in your bread flour there, right? But the fact is, you can do that because the Holy Spirit's the best colander in the world for that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so many people deal with this. So many people have these issues on the regular, and they don't know who to turn to, and they feel like they can't question people. And that's, yes, sometimes, as the Oompa Loompas would say, the mother and the father. But other times it's your own stupid self for not asking.
Yeah.
Right? And so...
Especially...
Yeah.
This is the other side of the double edge of the internet. There's always somebody ready to answer your questions.
Oh, yes.
Whether or not they have good answers is a, luck of the draw, if not playing Russian roulette with 5 loaded chambers. But... you can get answers to your questions.
I got a good answer from ChatGPT the other day. I actually asked it a question on medical stuff. I was asking, I gave it the situation with my stomach that I told you about with too much horseradish. And I asked it specifically if the chemical makeup of horseradish would be helped in my stomach or hurt by adding ginger to it. because ginger is normally a thing that calms your stomach, and it gave me a good answer as far as the chemistry goes, and it was helpful. Ginger was helpful, and I took some and it worked, so that's great. But
Awesome.
that's a scientific question.
Yeah.
Is ginger going to make stomach acid worse? Right? No, it's gonna make it better, generally speaking. Is it going to mess with mustard oils that specifically cause this? No, it's actually going to help. So mustard oils are the thing in horseradish that causes the acid, by the way. That was fun to find out. But yes, I could actually ask it a chemical question and get a good answer. I use Poe, but I don't use ChatGPT, but it was a good answer.
I use ChatGPT.
That's cool. But yeah, I mean, and like,
okay, so what we've effectively decided, what we're seeing would be a better way to put that.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is that there is what do we want to say? Like a longing in the millennial, late Gen X, early Gen Z generation for what? Good stories? Because they were raised on good stories and they're looking for them again?
No. They're longing for truth, beauty, and goodness because they've tasted it.
Yes. So how do we, once again, getting back to the question that I had earlier and reiterated, how do we then live in light of this? If we understand what they're wanting, because they're effectively all but telling us.
Right.
How do we take that and use that to advance, the mission of the gospel? And I don't mean that in the way that evangelicals understand that. I'm explaining for people.
Right.
I mean that in that Christ came to bring the kingdom.
Right.
How do we push the curse back here whenever it seems like it should be so easy, but it's so flipping hard?
Right. So it's not.
How do we do that?
Here we go. You ready? You see a deviant Star Wars nerd at a Star Wars convention, proselytizing hookers, whatever, trying to get one for the night, right? You're at a convention. Hey, why do you like Star Wars? First question. Let's role play. Go ahead. Why do you like Star Wars?
I mean, it's a great story.
Do you know much about story structure? Is that interesting to you? Like,
in the role play, not terribly. I enjoy seeing the character arcs of Luke and especially Anakin. He's got a great character arc. But yeah, that's about it.
Right. So, what is it about Anakin that you particularly are attracted to?
Well, I mean, like he starts off trying to do the right thing, and then the structures that are around him fail him, and so he still tries to do the right thing, but ends up going way off the rails. And then he is redeemed through, the second part of the series came out first, but second part of the series where it turns out that he, actually does the right thing in the end.
Right.
The thing that he was trying to do all along, but he eventually does it.
Right. So in that regard, was he right or wrong to turn to the dark side?
Well,
now you're asking moral questions. You can pause there. Now you're asking moral questions, and you're actually like in deep. Obviously, some people aren't going to get this far with you, but in my opinion, this is a way of presenting the gospel to someone by attacking what they like. Okay? Not attacking it as in this is the IFB version of attacking what they like. That beer is changing you into something that you're not. Come to Jesus, blah, blah, blah. Right? That's what they do.
Uh-huh.
The way I'm saying is, even the most deplorable Jeffrey Dahmer in the world has something that they like, that has something of truth, beauty, and goodness in it, because they are made in the imago Dei and they cannot escape it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Continually poke and point at those things so that they can see that there is no goodness, there is no truth, there is no beauty apart from Christ. You can literally do that with pornography. Right?
Okay, I'm willing to hear you out.
Okay, all right. Here's the deal. What do you like about the pornography? I like seeing naked whatever and crazy stuff going on, and might even go into particularly deviant things. Well, what attracted you to it in the first place? The women, if you're a man, right? The men, if you're a girl, generally speaking, right? Unless you're introduced through gay porn, which even then you can acknowledge the inherent beauty of a man's body or a woman's body as God made it. Okay. Yeah. And you can particularly exploit that by saying, is that what it's for?
Okay.
Right. And they can say, well, if someone's really committed, or if they're being, usually most people today are not going to go to the level that they say rape is bad, or excuse me, rape is good, right? They're going to say, as long as everything's consensual and all the contracts are signed and people are treated properly and blah, 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 right? So you can go, if they're being flippant with you, presuppositional, and say, by what standard? Or you can keep going and drilling down the level of apologetic that is desire-based. You can say, well, what does commitment really look like? Because a pimp is committed to his hoe. If she keeps turning tricks for him. Right? You following what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you're effectively saying that because humans are made in the image of God, there will be something that is true in their desires, because they're desiring, like, not in a redemptive sense, but they're made for that relationship. And so you grab onto that thing and then leverage that thing against the bad stuff that they believe?
That's a way of putting it. I don't think it's 100% accurate. More so what I'm talking about is to say, why do you like that? Give me a justification presuppositionally for why you like that.
Okay.
Show me the origin of the truth, beauty, and goodness that you see and are claiming to exist in the world. Because by claiming something is good or true, or good or beautiful, or even true, you are making a truth claim. This is the intersection, using their language, of presuppositionalism and what John Piper, even though I'm not a huge fan of his, would call Christian hedonism.
Yeah.
In their case, just hedonism. But hedonism is subject to the making of humans in the image of God. They cannot escape it. It's not that there is something good in them. It is that they are bent, so they are completely not what they're supposed to be. But they aren't completely, right? This is the utterly versus what's the other word? Totally. Utterly versus totally. Yeah. Right? They are not utterly depraved.
We believe in total depravity, not utter depravity.
Right. And as far as that is concerned, every single part of their being is bent. And a whole bunch of our parts of being are bent. Right?
Yeah.
We are totally, and I only say a whole bunch because God does fix things. Nothing is fully fixed over time until glorification. I'm fine. I'm there, whatever. But the point is, things are getting better, right? And so when we look at the desires of anybody, we need to be able to use this reverse logic, like reverse engineering their desires.
Yes.
To get to what they really love. And ask them why they love it. By doing that, you're not going to get to, realistically, because I'm evil, hail Satan. They might say that because they don't want to say the real answer.
Yeah.
They are suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, and the truth is they cannot escape God's truth, beauty, or goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got all these people out there, all these millennials, primed for these conversations. And many of them are intelligent and know when you start going down this path, they will try to steer you into the presuppositionalist route to try to have a shouting match and end it. This is why they're so shouty. Because that's the only way they've learned how to suppress the truth.
Yeah.
Right? But
they can't Dawkins.
Right. Exactly. They don't have the ability. They're intelligent people and they know what you're doing, but this is how they were taught to combat it.
Yeah.
When mom and dad made sense and you lost as a kid, what did you do? Scream and whine.
Yeah.
And we're cosplaying as children. So what do you get when you have a Peter Pan generation that actually has a revival? What does it look like? It looks like a whole bunch of bards to me.
Yeah.
That tell the stories of childhood and say why that truth, beauty, and goodness is important. And the problem is nobody wants that. Nobody actually wants a revival of a Peter Pan generation. They want them to die off because they don't want to deal with a generation of bards telling them about truth, beauty, and goodness. Because we're Gnostic, because we want to believe that we can have some bully in the White House tell us what to do and everything's better.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Okay. So the thing that this since we're effectively wish.com Knox Unplugged, I'm going to mention the Big Brother. So on Knox Unplugged, Jason has said that he believes that the trying to remember exactly what he said, but something along the lines of the real revival that happened in the 20th century was the Jesus People movement.
Right, yes.
And the church squandered that revival.
Yep.
Because we were not ready to accept and disciple.
Yep.
Like that's the thing. It's not just accept everything that they want. It is accept and disciple.
Right.
These people who came in because they were dirty and weird and challenged the status quo.
Yep.
It sounds like you're saying that's the same thing that we're dealing with now.
We're dealing with right. We're dealing with round 2. God gave us a second chance.
Yeah, exactly. How do we keep from squandering it again? Because obviously God's mercies are new every morning, but he does tend to, judge the nations that spit in his face.
So this is hard for me because I am part of that generation. I am part of the Jesus people in this particular situation, but I am also a legacy member of the church from the previous Jesus movement. Because of my father, who was tangentially connected with the Jesus people movement. Right? I don't think it's my place to give the church instructions on this matter. That's the first thing. However, my advice would generally be to stop worrying about you, stop leaning, basically Proverbs, don't lean on your own understanding.
Okay.
That's the big first thing. Do not lean on, trust in God and do not lean on your own understanding. God, when he starts giving you weirdos, is doing something whether you like it or not. And by holding back against God, you are just causing your own demise. Old and New Testament, anytime there was the church or an institution of God pushing against what God wanted, even in the slightest way, even just doubting God, it made things harder. You think of Joshua, you think of Gideon, you think of the early church, when they were doing particularly well, was when God would say something really crazy and they'd be like, okay, good to go. Let's do that.
Let's go march around the city a couple times.
Right. Right now, they're saying there is wisdom in a multitude of counselors without first looking at what the game plan is for the current situation as prescribed in the word. And the game plan prescribed in the word is do what God says and do it with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So first is love the Lord, then love your neighbor, etc., etc. This is Sunday school basic stuff. And if Sunday school basic stuff is actually followed by the institutions, artists will thrive. As well as everyone else. And so,
yeah, I mean,
right.
That takes us back to Lewis. Art has no survival value, but gives survival value.
This is one of the interesting things I saw. Okay. Tangential to Retro Rick, there was some people who are friends of his. And so they did a video and it's titled, I recommend anyone go look at it just to see what people are dealing with. And particularly with this is all related to everything we're talking about, but also the Christian Sabbath, which is another topic I'd really love to get into sometime. But
agreed.
This guy, it's called Don't Ever Start Your Own Game Store or something like that. You can look it up. I believe Phoenix Resale was the one that did the video. He's a resale guy, does video games, tangentially connected with Rick. He went to another store and talked with this guy who opened it. And the thing that is amazing, and he proves it with his own numbers, is that physical media of any sort is a recession-proof business, because when times are tough, people are looking for an escape, and when times are good, people are looking to relax. It's banking on laziness. Right? Because it demands nothing of you, etc., etc. People don't go to concerts when times are really, really bad unless they're trying to escape. I think that's less of a thing because people are worried during, the tough times, aren't going to go to a concert if they think it's going to be interfered with or anything is going to be asked of them. People want stuff that there is nothing asked of them. Right? They want to shut off their brain and enjoy something, whether it's live music or a video game, right? This is just the truth of amusement versus entertainment. We've talked about this before. So in this regard, when it comes to a business, right? When it comes to a business and when it comes to, okay, let me tie this back. Thinking about it. When we look at the church telling people to take care of their families and to not give up the sure thing, and to be good stewards with their money. By implication, be conservative in your betting on the stock market.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're essentially saying. And whatever you're, quote, investing in, however you're doing it. We're saying something that has real value for times that are not desperate. And we've been in desperate times for probably 100 years now when it comes to our nation. And so the thing that we're really dealing with here is not everyone is called to take risks. You're not going to stick your head. Okay, say you got a clear liquid that smells and looks like water, but it's bubbling. Okay?
There's no heat being applied to it?
Yeah, you can't tell. Okay, let's say you're in a room and the only way out is through this water, this body of water, and it's bubbling, and you can't tell how hot it is. You can't see clearly enough to make sure that there's steam. You're going to either dip your toe or your finger in to test it, and not necessarily in, but very get close to it. You're not going to stick your face and submerge it underwater.
Yeah.
Okay? The face is not the thing that's going to test it.
Yeah.
The finger
because the face is important.
Right. The finger or the toe is going to do it. Okay. So we've got the biblical picture of the body. There are risk taker body parts. There are parts that are particularly well suited to take risks, such as your brain and nervous system calculating the distance for a jump. So the brain working together with the nervous system and the legs to calculate a jump. You don't want to have your brain work with your hands to make the jump.
Yeah.
Or your nose, right? Like, it's not going to happen. Okay? And so, as a result of forgetting about the body of Christ, we forget our entrepreneurs. We forget our artists.
Yeah.
We forget the people who have a vision and will spend many years risking it on a low profit, low reward situation in order to make something happen, in order to wait for the moment to strike. And not just wait for, but like continually try to strike and see what happens. These are the people who are starting the fire so that we don't freeze to death.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't want the grandma who can barely breathe because it's so cold using her energy with the striker to try and start the fire. You give it to the younger person who can handle it, right? We have rejected in mass, in big picture, and I know you like talking big picture kind of societal, stuff, the church, this, that, and the other.
Correct.
And that I'm trying to move up to your category for this. But generally speaking, we have forgotten the doctrine of the body, and we have forgotten the doctrine of risk. And it's risk that is calculated upon the promises of God. If it's risk that's not calculated on the promises of God, don't risk it. That's stupid. That's Jephthah in his vows, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So promises of God, what are they? In my case, we got, I'm going to be a God to you and your children, after you, et cetera, et cetera. That's one.
Yeah.
Then we also see those who, what is the one, the people who blessed are those who, blessed are the feet of those who bring, what is it?
Oh, yeah. Blessed are the feet of those who bring the good news.
The good news, right?
Yeah.
I believe that includes storytellers. They're not evangelists. They're a different thing. But they are in the ranks of the good news tellers. They are, right? There are philosophers who are in the same category, and not philanthropists, although they would probably count too. I was thinking anthropologists. There are Christian anthropologists in the same category. What is the truth of man? That he has no hope apart from Jesus Christ. That's good news because Jesus has it. You see what I'm saying? Like there are certain categories where in the body that are not pastors, that are not the official word givers, who also give the good news. Right? And they give their part, their spin on the good news because that's their job. Yeah. So there's other categories as well. He cares about you more than the sparrows. If you basically if you follow God and you do all that is required of you, and you're actually seeking to follow him and praying consistently and asking for the desires of your heart as sanctified by the Holy Spirit, he will be faithful to give you what you ask for. And all the desires of your heart. This is where I am actually more regulative than I'm actually more conservative on my regulative principle here. Okay, so regulative principle. There's regulative principle of worship. I'm gonna say regulative principle of desires. Let's bring this up. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm listening.
Now, the regulative principle of desires. Well, okay, let's do normative first. Normative principle of desires would be that everything that is on your heart, okay, is put there by God because of providence, and everything that is against God's law, even if it comes up on your heart, is out of the picture. Okay. That's kind of the normative version. The regulative version would say first of all, anything that God says shouldn't be on your heart. We got that. We agree with that. Second of all, everything that is put on your heart by God is must be done. And I would say, being more regulative, that everything that he puts on your heart that is not against the word, or everything that is on your heart that is not against the word of God. Basically, I'm saying it's deductive, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying if it's on your heart and it's not against God's word, then it was put there by God and you must do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people really don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that is entirely scriptural. Particularly when we see such weird desires in the Bible that God actually fulfilled and wanted to fulfill and brought about great revival through fulfilling. Right? Things, right. So, things such as, for example, the Ark of the Covenant being brought back to Israel. Right? Did they? Yeah. A lot of people who are Gnostic evangelicals will say, did they really need it? I mean, they're going to have Jesus. You see what I'm saying? There's all these other sorts of things. Like, why would you go to war for that? Why would people die for just a box with some stuff in it?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, if you have a desire and you're a Christian that is actually following God and it is not against his law, then he put it there. And unless he takes it away, you must do it. This is where going back to the millennial thing, going back to the 90s, going back to Disney. Yes, Vodi Bakum is right. You should not follow your heart if you're not a Christian. If you are a Christian and you are following God, you must follow your heart. because that is your conscience. That is the Holy Spirit. That is the direction you're supposed to be going. And if you're really actually concerned it's against God's law, that's a problem and you should figure it out. Right. You should go check. And if you still can't find it, pray that God takes it away if it is in the Word of God and you can't find it. And if he doesn't take it away, you still have to do it. Go ahead, be Gideon. I get it. It's scary. There's risky stuff. And God puts some weird things on the heart of man. But he only puts good stuff on the heart of man. He doesn't tempt us. The Bible explicitly says that the Lord does not tempt man.
Yeah.
God put it on Abraham's heart to go kill his kid.
Well, he specifically told him to.
Right. And yes, but he put it on his heart. How did he do it? How did he speak to him? Do you think it was audible? Could have been. But even if it's audible,
I always assumed it was.
Well, even if it was audible, okay, one way or the other. I don't particularly have a say one way or the other. Even if it was audible, what's he doing? He's putting a burden on Abraham's heart. He's saying,
yeah,
you must choose in your heart with your own hands and brain and everything else to slay the son that I promised you would be the savior of the world.
Yeah.
God put a contradictory thing on Abraham's heart to then take it away and teach him a lesson. And a lot of people go, well, isn't that capricious? Isn't that tempting? No, it's not. He's teaching you something in your heart. He is showing you through a little flannel graph play that just so happened to involve bloody animals.
I have to say, I've never thought of the Old Covenant as a flannel graph.
Oh, I know, right? Why do they keep putting it on flannel graph then? I don't understand. I mean, I'm fine with flannel graph. I think flannel graph is great, but why?
Yeah,
why not origami? It could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Summer White, James White's daughter,
Summer Yeager.
She said on, Summer Yeager.
Yeah.
Whenever she said, if you cannot demonstrate something to a child on a flannel graph, it should probably not be demonstrated.
Or here's my one. If you need to go demonstrate it on a flannel graph and the parents would be mad if you did, that might be a problem too.
Yeah. Well, like you start off with a basic. If you can't show it on a flannel graph, you probably shouldn't show it. That's your basic.
If you have to go to the fridge and grab a bottle of ketchup and spray it all over the flannel graph.
Yeah, we probably don't show
or set the flannel graph on fire.
What Samuel did to Agag does not specifically need to be shown on the flannel graph.
What Samuel did in conjuring, or what Saul did in conjuring Samuel. Yeah.
No, I'm sure that I can make a pretty good ghost flannel graph piece.
Get some clip art of like a Boo from Mario with a beard.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, I want to make this sketch now. Yes.
Boo, it's me, Samuel. Oh boy.
Distribute through lore.
There you go. Sounds great.
Flannel graph stories. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we mostly nailed that. Is there any more specifically to the millennial generation as a Bardic generation that you want to get into?
not specifically. The big question that I have is how do we not squander this again? Like if we're waiting for if we are pressing forward towards the goal of having this be what happens, if this is what God's shown us that needs to happen, if we're pressing forward in faith.
Okay, so first is seeing that it's what God wants. The second is having faith. And if we don't have faith, pray for it. That's it.
Yeah. I believe, help my unbelief.
Yep. Exactly. I think getting people to see it is the first step, and that's really hard. And that's what you're so frustrated about, quite frankly. And I've felt frustrated about at various points in my life, but I find it more and more enjoyable, slowly but surely, to do what Chesterton talked about and sit inside your house with the door open and a meal on the table and be like, what are you doing out there? Come on in here.
Yeah.
It's fun. I really have a lot of pleasure in doing that kind of hospitality through the Brood, through other means. And that has been the best way that I have found to actually help change the hearts and minds of people. Hopefully Incarnate Audio will too, which people don't know about yet, but I'm not going to get into. No, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So. It's going to be great.
I hope so. So anyway, but yeah, does that make sense? I think not the biggest thing for faith that we can actually do intellectually for ourselves through our sanctification and working our sanctification out with fear and trembling is to remember the doctrine of the body. There are people who are called to be risk takers, and in a time where desperate things need to be done to make any sort of change, it is foolish to hold back the risk takers. If you're pinned down in a Crusader fortress during, a reign of terror from Saladin, a siege from Saladin, right? If that's what's going on, and you're holding knights back, and you have no escape otherwise, you have no other escape route underground or otherwise, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. You're not going to outlast them. They're going to keep rotating and coming back. You're outnumbered. You need to let the guys fight. To borrow a Gen Z phrase, let them cook. Right? Let them cook. So, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not advocating for myself here. That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be really clear on that.
I mean, in a certain sense you are, but only as you believe that you represent a large contingent of people. Right. You're acting
I'm fallible,
which is very appropriate.
Right. I'm fallible. I'm questionable. Like that's a real thing. And so I just want to be clear on that for anyone listening. Yeah.
And the only other thing that I think needs to be said is the current group of people who are talking about the Jesus People movement and all that type of stuff are primarily the liberals who are saying, oh, well, we should have accepted, the reason that they didn't come into the church is because we didn't accept homosexuality and all that type of stuff. And so whenever, I know. But whenever, if by the grace of God and when this happens, hold tight to the confession, hold tight to the creeds, hold tight to the Bible is what that's saying.
Yeah.
And then from there, work out and try to understand that artists are a little bit different than most people.
But don't look at it like a different class of people, because they're not. They're a different part of the body. That's different. The way
exactly.
Yeah, the way we look at classes, that's what I'm afraid of, is that classes in the church, but they're basically like people have taken the doctrine of the body and turned it into either egalitarianism or classism on every level. This is the number one thing that I'm afraid of. The doctrine of the body is that we're actually one, and that everything we do affects each other, right?
Yeah.
And right.
Whenever I say they're a little bit different, I mean that in the same way that like men and women are different.
Right.
They do things differently over there. We don't fully understand it, but we have to appreciate it because we're called by God to.
Right. And so
that's the type of different that it is.
And so we're the body of Christ, and if Jesus, as the head, is reaching out his toe or his finger, not yours, his, to touch the water, and you as the stomach go, "Oh, don't do that." Are you acting in order or out of order?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there you go. I think we said what we need to say on that. I can stop recording and
I think so.
Whatever else, and we can talk about whatever now. The Dumb Soldier by Robert Louis Stevenson. When the grass was closely mown, walking on the lawn alone, in the turf a hole I found, and hid a soldier underground. Spring and daisies came apace, grasses hid my hiding place. Grasses run like a green sea o'er the lawn up to my knee. Under grass alone he lies, looking up with leaden eyes, scarlet coat and pointed gun, to the stars and to the sun. When the grass is ripe like grain, when the scythe is stoned again, when the lawn is shaven clear, then my hole shall reappear. I shall find him, never fear. I shall find my grenadier. But for all that's gone and come, I shall find my soldier dumb. He has lived a little thing in the grassy woods of spring, done, if he could tell me true, just as I should like to do. He has seen the starry hours, and the springing of the flowers, and the fairy things that pass in the forests of the grass. In the silence he has heard talking bee and ladybird, and the butterfly has flown o'er him as he lay alone. Not a word will he disclose, not a word of all he knows. I must lay him on the shelf and make up the tale myself.
For more insightful blogs and videos on how to be a true bard, please visit joshuadavidling.com.